Welcome to the Music Reel, everyone. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. I have two pushy boys with me today, Manny and Mark. And our very special guest today, we have Fiona Horne. Now, many of you will remember Fiona from the Deaf FX Day. I know in our household, Psychoactive Summer was constantly playing for years and years and years. Now, Fiona has just returned back to Australia, and she is a multi-award winning artist, author, pilot, and she's a major practitioner and does a lot of good work in the community. So Fiona, it is so lovely to talk to you today. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. How are you?
Thanks, Nikki. I'm great, thank you. I'm holed up here in ISO in Melbourne, and I'm comfortable and grateful to be back in Australia.
So you've actually just returned from, where were you coming from?
California. I was in Los Angeles. So in a nutshell, I've been living in the Caribbean for 7 years, doing a lot of stuff out there. And but my pilot work, my aviation work, led me to a job in California that was meant to start in early March. I'd actually done the flight check rides, been checked out, approved, offered the job, and was looking forward to flying there, and a new airplane I hadn't flown before. So it would have been fun. But the state went into lockdown literally as the day I was meant to start my new job, state went into lockdown. And, you know, I'd left the Caribbean to expand on my aviation career, and then the whole state's locked down, and then the country is, and then, you know, and I'm a US citizen now as well. So it was extraordinary times to be there. And the long story short is when it went to lockdown, I went back to the Caribbean. I quickly got out that night in early March. Went back to the Caribbean for 2 months. When California came out of lockdown, which was just, you know, a week ago or so, the riots and the looting started. So I was literally in a hotel in Santa Monica, supposed to be flying to my new job the next day, but with the riots, the looting, the curfew that literally was happening in front of me. Like, I was in my rental car, and one guy threw a bottle across my car, hit the windscreen of the car opposite me. They were screaming at each other. And it was, you know, it was over the very sad and shocking events of recent times with George Floyd and everything else. And I'm just in the middle of it. And I'm like, I just don't know if I want to be here right now. And I'm very privileged that I have an Australian and a US passport, and Australia's still called Australia home, yeah, but I've made my home in the US for the last, 20 years really. But I just knew I had to get out, and I'd been wanting to see my family. I've been, feeling the tug, and I was meant to be out here in October for a tour anyway. And then I called the Australian consulate as all this stuff went down and said, what should I do? Can I get back to Australia anytime? They said, no, we don't know how long the international borders will be locked down. We recommend you take one of these government repatriation flights. So it was a whole lot of things adding up. But I really feel that, in my spiritual life, I was divinely guided to be here now. It's all gone as crazy as it was to get out like that, literally as the whole state just collapsed around me, with the violence and everything. It was like, I also felt divinely guided to be able to get on a plane. And, Australia's, I don't know how you guys feel living here, but from the world, looking at Australia from outside, it all seems to be handled very well and very respectfully here. There's a lot of issues, obviously, that aren't perfect, but overall, Australia really is the lucky country, and I feel very blessed and grateful to be able to be back here. So I'm in an ISO arrangement in Melbourne, in a hotel here for 14 days. Everyone's very nice. I'm just very grateful, and here I am.
So someone who's got a story of actually being in ISO for 2 weeks. So you've only been here a couple of days. So you've got
4 days. I'm 4 days down, 10 to go. And I read some of the horror. I read some of the horror stories that I saw. But media, you got to question everything. That's the facts of the matter. And so, in my creating my own narrative and not just blindly consuming what the mainstream masses would have you believe, right. I actually read some of the horror stories about ISO, but I have only experienced exceptionally good care and support. The food, well, I was lucky I could order from Woolies online. So my little kitchenette is full of organic fruit and veggies and pressed juices and all that good healthy stuff. I'm not eating the hotel food. I'm vegetarian, but they were trying, but I don't know. I couldn't tell whether it was baby poop or eggs. I was like, I can't eat this. so I just said, listen, if it's all right, and you're allowed to order online, shop groceries. So 2 security guards came up with masks on and dropped the groceries at my front door. And I've even had, and that's great. So I've been able to eat healthy. And I even had a walk, a 15-minute fresh air break 2 days ago with 2 security guards. They take you down to a courtyard. So it's very interesting. I mean, and you are, you know, you're not locked in your room, but you're not allowed to leave. And but you know, I have a window that I can't open it, but I'm in the city, and so there's a gap between these 2 high rises, and between 10:35 a.m. and 11 a.m. I have 25 minutes of direct sunlight through the building. So I just quickly squish myself up against the window and I suck in all that vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
And make the most of it, because that's what, you know, very lucky to just even have this option in these times, you know. So just grateful.
Can you believe?
It's quite the adventure, though. Quite the adventure.
Exactly. Could you imagine go back in time to December last year? Like, what would you say to yourself? What?
Let's go back here. No, wait a minute. Let's just go back in time to February. Who needs to go to December? I mean,
what would you say in February?
Couple of months. Well, you know, I would just say one thing I thought of the book I wrote last year, The Art of Witch, that came out, my manifesto on witchcraft. A lot of that was like a primer for these times, because I was talking about living a simpler life, being grateful in the moment, lightening your load, shedding your belongings and your possessions, being able to be adaptable and flexible, showing up to life, wanting to be of service to help others and be mindful of others' needs and also respectful of others' needs. And that's all like big themes in this book about witchcraft that I wrote last year. And it seems to have been a primer for the times now. So I'm reading my own stuff and taking my own advice right now on how to manage and handle this. We're living in extraordinary times. There's so much crazy dark stuff to be going on. That also means that there has to be the balance of light and goodness.
Exactly.
And it's just where you turn your attention, and there is so much beauty and so much goodness coming out of this collapse of civilization, human civilization as we know it. My gut is that great good will come of these times,
I agree.
and it will awaken the global human community to the value and importance of respect, tolerance, compassion, and it also is allowing nature to take a lovely deep breath. As a witch, nature is sacred to me. Nature is my Bible, and it's like, for want of a better way of describing it. And you know, I have a question. I look to the full moon, like full moon tonight, strawberry full moon, as we're doing this interview, and I look to guidance in nature, and I just can see her taking a beautiful deep breath and stretching her arms, going, yeah, lightening the human loads for a while. And I mean, maybe as we go back into the world in a busy way, that might shift. But I think everyone has been awakened to the simple fact that one person really does make a big difference, for better and for worse, depending on how you choose to invest your energy and attention. And I think it's a very exciting, empowering time for the human race.
No, I agree. Manny.
Well, Fiona, welcome back to Australia, finally.
Thanks, Manny.
After all these years. God, we met many years ago. It seems like another lifetime. So mine is a music question. Question. I remember seeing you on stage. I won't mention how many years ago.
Oh, you can. Bring it on. I'm 54 this year. I think I'm turning 54, so half a century. It's all good, eh?
Absolutely. So it was about half a century ago. On stage, FFX, an exciting proposition for us to be part of. I'll mention the venue because I remember it vividly. It was St. Paul's Tavern. It was a sold-out
best
show.
Venue, yeah.
Great gig, one of the best gigs I've ever seen you do. Fantastic. Then we progressed down the line and all those wonderful entertainment centre gigs. God, I saw you at Festival Hall with Smashing Pumpkins. So we're going back to that era. What amazing era. It was a wonderful era, say, for live music. I remember, and we were just coming out of one enterprise. It was really interesting, the more mainstream enterprise, and then coming into that, like I mentioned, that wonderful young gentleman, Mr. Justin Van Stom, who we connected with many years ago, who we are going to have a conversation with next week sometime.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, he's a bit of a genius, the old Justin, back in the day.
Absolutely. And what I want to find out is what drew you to music in that era? What drew you into that mechanism? of music. It was a huge success. It was a wonderful project. And now, all these years later, what's reinvigorated that want to come back on stage again? Because I love that passion for music.
Well, you know, I think prior to Deaf Effects, I had been forging my own little musical path, taught myself to play guitar, formed a kind of grungy punk rock band called Sister Sludge, and we're playing that in Adelaide with my girlfriend Wendy Witch. And then after that was the Mothers, which was, you know, originally all girl punk, like, you know, playing sort of skate punk kind of stuff on the Waterfront record. We had some releases with them. We were touring with bands like the Hard-Ons and Hellman and Spunk Bubbles and all those great bands back in the late 80s. And then, you know, Deaf Effects came along because Sean, who had conceptualized a way of approaching music where we would have electronic beats and heavy guitars, and, you know, he's quite brilliant in how he put all that together. But then it really became a sum of the energies of the individuals in the band and evolved much, you know, much more broadly than what he'd originally envisaged, as it turned out. But I think, you know, what drew me into it was just at the time, I was very blessed to be born of a time when you just didn't know what you couldn't do. There were so many live music venues. There was so much, so many opportunities. I mean, especially I'm remembering in Adelaide back in those days, you could do 3 gigs in a night. You know, I mean, there were 3 venues you could do sets at as a little band running around. You know, it was extraordinary times. And I think that in Australia, particularly being isolated geographically from the world, I remember back in those days often talking about how we could look at what the rest of the world was doing, collate it all, and then put our own spin on it, and it would be this really fresh, raw sound, which is kind of what Deaf Effects was in a way. I mean, it was a bit like the mushroom effect, though. It was happening simultaneously all around the world, that morphogenic, whatever it is, morphogenic resonance thing, where you had a band like Pop Will Heed itself in England, and you had Deaf Effects in Australia, and we were all kind of experimenting with this way of approaching music. From a live perspective, when I look back at the band and just remember, like, I never felt like I was a great singer. I never felt like I was a great songwriter. But on stage, I knew I had it. Like, I knew that raw, visceral moment of walking out onto that stage, and just whether there were 3 people or 3,000 or 30,000, I think there was once at a big day out, it's a massive crowd. You just knew. I knew I belonged. I knew my place, and it tapped into a deep primal sense of authentic self that really is what fueled me to come back on stage when Deaf Effects did some reunion shows these last 5 years, coming in and out of Australia, especially last year with our farewell tour that we kind of snuck in and did. And it was like, again, it's just that opportunity to connect with people. And even now in these extraordinary times of lockdown, and where we're not allowed to gather in groups and blah, 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 and all of that, it just makes you even more aware of just the power of the people when we come together and unite physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's what I love about live music. It's just one of the best reasons to be alive. And I can't wait till we can all share that energy again. And I know we will.
Yeah, we will.
We will.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the band live. I have to say that. I can't wait, you know, to see Deaf Effects and Fiona Horne on stage again. That was those moments. Again, that wonderful venue in Southeast Queensland, St Paul's Tavern. That is probably one of the, you know, most impactful gigs that I've ever seen. Probably one of my most favourite gigs. When it was a full house.
Thanks, Manny.
And loved every moment of the thing.
Well, there's just those moments, isn't it? There's those moments that just grab you, and they're the things you'll think about the day you die. With the day you shut down lights forever, there'll be those flashes, and you'll have those memories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You want to know what my memory is? Like that?
Yep.
The first live music show I went to that really blew my mind was actually Midnight Oil at the St James Tavern in Sydney. Packed out. I was a little punk. I'd shaved the side of my head. So I had this stupid long mohawk that I'd done with shoe polish, and it like split in the middle, you know, and you get that V. Bad mohawk, bad hair. And I went there, and I had on cricket stumps knitted my big baggy jumper thing with cricket stumps, so it had huge holes in the wool, you know, and went in there to Midnight Oil, little Miss Mohawk punk rocker, thinking she knew what was going on. But I was always, growing up in Cronulla and Sutherland Shire, Sydney, I always, the oils and the you know, Powderworks album, Surfing with a Spoon, like, all that stuff was just like, that music was the soundtrack of my rebellious heart. And to get to see them live, and then years later, Deaf Effects are on the same stage as Midnight Oil, and I'm chatting with Peter Garrett and Jimmy and everyone. I'm like, and Rob, and I'm like, I'm just not worthy. I'm so starstruck still 20 years later, you know. But you have these memories, you know, and they just fuel you, and it's a blessing to have them.
Oh, I love it. Mark?
Fiona, on that music tip, you did mention that Deaf Effects had a tour happening at the end of the year, which is now sort of up in the air. I suppose.
Well, I mean, I should make that clear. It wasn't a Deaf Effects tour. It was actually going to be a witchcraft book tour thing. We did what we called our farewell tour last year. We snuck in and did some gigs. Toured with Nunchucker Superfly last year, and in June, snuck them in. And but you know, it became, instead of the farewell tour, it became the Never Say Never tour, because everyone was just like, "Why are you stopping?" And we're like, "Well,
good question.
Actually, why are we?" I thought I wasn't going to be coming back to Australia ever again, so we may do some more shows. You know, it's it just depends.
Let us know, Fiona. Let us know.
I will let you know.
So you've got a book coming out, is that right? You've got a new book coming out?
Well, yeah, there's another one coming out. I'm working on the edit right now. It's a teen witch book, and it's called Magic Youth. That's the working title, and it probably will be out in October. Maybe we'll push it again. We're sort of working out with the changes of everything. I was meant to be doing this tour with Wendy Rule, another amazing witch from Australia who's an incredible musician. We had this big tour planned for October, and now we don't know. We might push it till next year, February, March, in which case the book might get pushed too. But I didn't expect to be writing books again, and but there's an awakening of the spiritual path of the witch in the world, and being that witches are healers, and primarily that's our roots as healers. It's timely that, you know, it's timely for witches around the world to be connecting with their spiritual source and uniting, because we have a role to play in the spiritual and emotional, physical healing of the world right now. I believe, and I think as a community, as we're not growing weaker, we're growing stronger in these challenged times. And I feel very blessed that I've had the opportunity to write again about the subject and connect with people again, and especially with the benefit of 30 years of practice behind me now. I'm considered an elder, and it's a lovely, I realize I have a generational impact now. The early books I wrote were 20 years ago, and when I did the Art of Witch tour and the spoken word tour in Australia last year, around the same time Deaf Effects, we did our thing, doubled up. I had mothers bringing their daughters to the events, and you realise you've had this generational impact, and it's very humbling and very very beautiful too. And I haven't had any kids of my own physically. I haven't had physical human babies. I've had books and music projects and different types of babies. Yeah. But that actually be connected with families in this way and know that you've had a positive role in young people's lives is it's really beautiful. I'm just very, very grateful and happy.
And I think you're right. There is an awakening at this time of incredible challenge around the world. There is, to juxtaposition, there is this incredible awakening happening. So, the things that you're talking about, that you're writing about, I think that's important for people to look at it from a different perspective and connect to the actual energy, because it's not just, like you said, darkness. There is incredible balance. Like, we have spoken to about 100 different people already on the Music Reel, and the stories, Fiona, are so filled with resilience and optimism. You would never think that. It's just, we always finish these calls feeling on a massive high because everyone's on this other side. So it's been, it's been.
And I really think the mainstream media, especially living in America for as long as I have, it's skewed very heavily towards fear, negativity. I wrote that song for Deaf Effects, 1993, Masses Like Asses. Masses like asses play follow the leader. Our heads in the trough, we eat what we're given. Masses like asses play follow the leader, waiting at the gates to be led to the slaughter. I mean, I've been writing in all my books for years, don't watch mainstream media, question the narrative, create your own narrative, question everything. And the now is that more important. And there is so much light out there. It's, again, a witchcraft principle, but in the darkest night, the brightest light will shine. And sometimes things have to get really dark and difficult. But if we see these obstacles as opportunities to guide us, not to crush us, that is there to be done. And it's really important that like-minded people stick together right now too, and encourage, support, magnify each other, and respect those who have a different opinion too. If people, this is one of the biggest challenges for me in these times, has been to have really dear friends who I love unconditionally, and they are not feeling optimistic about these times. And I'm realizing that I have to respect their choice. If they want to remain in a place of fear, I can't change their mind. It's like, it's not,
No.
it's like being sober all these years. I've been sober 7.5 years, and people might say, oh, can you help my friend get sober? And I'm like, do they want it?
Yeah,
no, I don't know, but
from the person.
It's got to come from the person. So you can be you can try to be a useful, positive example. You can try to be a source of light. But I've also learned in these times that you can't force your own narrative on someone else.
Right.
And, you know, I just, so I try to just keep a peaceful, grateful state of mind, conscious mind, and spiritually stay connected with what I experience as a spiritual source of positive power, positive enlightenment, whatever. And I just try to keep things simple in these times. But yeah, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary times. It's lovely to chat with you guys, because you're obviously aligned in a similar way. So it's a blessing to connect with people that feel the same.
And it looked such a great message for everyone today, Fiona. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I will make sure all of your information is in the post. I'd encourage everyone who's watching this, connect with Fiona. It's a really great message for you just to look at life from a different perspective. And Fiona, good luck for the remaining 10 days in ISO. That's
oh, thank you. I've been doing my yoga and my meditation, doing the edit on the book, just, you know, being grateful to
good
be
on
safe.
you.
And
take care, and we will check in with you very soon. Thanks, Fiona. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks very much.
Fiona, take care.
Thank you.